Hey there, good morning. It's Mathea Ford with Renal Diet HQ, and I wanted to go live this morning and talk about what your new kidney diagnosis means for your health and for your life. So if you will throw up a, hey, I'm here, tell me you're here if you're joining the group, and post any questions below, and I'll be glad to answer them either during the live broadcast or I will answer them afterwards. I wanted to about what your new kidney diagnosis means and kind of some things you can start with. If you're new to kidney disease, you just found out you have chronic kidney disease, what are stage 3, stage 4? Usually what happens is people find out either reading their lab results or their doctor tells them, but also kind of makes it like it's no big deal. They're like, oh, it's okay. You can see a nephrologist later. And that can raise some alarms. So you start Googling. And I wanted to give you some tips for what to do. And also, I have an offer this next couple days that I want to talk to you about because I think it's important to help you with going with kidney disease. So number one, I wanted to talk about, I always try to do like 2 or 3 things. So I want to talk about your plan for meals. So what's going to change is your plan for meals. And what I hope doesn't change is that everybody in the family eats the same thing. But if that's not the case, then your plan for meals, I believe, means you need to plan ahead a little bit. And it also means you need to just be more cautious. So what I love to do is to try to gather your ideas for the week. And then I asked the question the other day, like, are you do you plan ahead or do you just kind of look in your pantry? So your recipes and your plan for meals is that you're going to have those things in your pantry that are healthier for you when you have kidney disease. So things like pasta and rice. You can still eat potatoes unless you have high potassium. You can still eat potatoes, but it doesn't mean that you'll be eating tons of potatoes. But what usually changes is the amount of meat you eat. And so what I would for you to look into kind of those staples that you really enjoy. And then I'm going to talk next about how to adjust recipes. But think about those staples that you enjoy. Last night at dinner, we had my nephew. They're getting ready to go to Germany, and him and his wife and their 2 little babies were over at the house, and it was 5:30, and I was like, hey, we need to have some dinner. You guys want to stay? And my husband was like, we don't have anything thought out. And I was like, well, I'm going to make chicken salad. So just like tuna salad, but instead I don't particularly like tuna. So we made chicken salad, just chicken and mayonnaise and some dill pickle relish and the chunk chicken that comes in the can. So that was the awesome thing, is it was in the can. Now that may not be good for you because it may have too much sodium in it, but you can look for lower sodium types of chicken. The other thing I also think is if you wanted to have chicken available to make at any time, you make some up ahead of time, cook them so they're not high in sodium, chop them up already, and you freeze them. So having things like that for your plan for meals is really going to be helpful to you. Thinking about some different things for breakfast. Maybe you always have oatmeal around. Maybe you always have different lower sodium types of foods that are going to give you more fullness. So cereal can be a good thing. Bran cereal can be good, but it can be high in sodium, so you just have to watch. I like to eat yogurt, and you can eat yogurt. It's typically lower in sodium. If you eat Greek yogurt, it's probably higher in protein, so you may need to switch the type of yogurt that you eat. But all of those things are things that you're going to think about planning for your meals. And I really just encourage you to come up with a list of staples that you want to make sure you have in your cabinet or in your refrigerator or in your freezer that you can eat. So maybe you cook up some chicken, or maybe you always have the little individually frozen chicken breasts in your refrigerator that you want to be, or in your freezer that you want to be able to grab at any time and cook. Okay, so plan for your meals. Think through, okay, what is going to be lower in sodium and what kind of foods do I enjoy eating so that I'm not going out to eat. When you go out to eat or you grab something out to eat, a lot of times it's going to be higher sodium. So you want to try to eat as much as you can at home and try to kind of get your diet under good management. And then you can grab stuff out to eat on occasion, but you're going to definitely want to have those staples because you don't want to be in a situation where you don't have the foods that you can eat and you're forced to kind of go out. So I love to have fresh fruit in the house. But obviously if you have fresh fruit, say you have strawberries, if you, for some reason in my house, either everybody eats everything the first day or they eat none of it and it goes bad. So when it's starting to go bad, things like bananas, things like strawberries, you can freeze those. So planning ahead and having those healthy foods is great. And then number 2 I wanted to talk about was kind of how you're going to adjust your recipes. So you probably have some family favorite recipes. And one of the main things that you want to change is to get to lower protein. So you may just look at your recipe and cut the amount of protein in half and either replace that with more vegetables or more of the grains that you're eating. So like for me, if I make a casserole and maybe I normally put 2 pounds of meat in the dish, I maybe only am going to put 1 pound of meat and then add more vegetables or a little bit more pasta so that it still feels like a full meal, but I've reduced the amount of protein that is in the food. Another thing you can do is switching out some of your meat for things like beans and legumes, which are going to be still have protein in them, but they're going to have fibers, so they're going to help you feel full longer. I don't want you to feel restricted on this diet, but I want you to try to manage to get a better, healthier diet. Because I don't believe that you have to feel restricted, but you have to also fill up those meals with things that are a little bit better for you. Okay, so I got a note. I'm tired of eating the same thing and I'm having a problem staying on the diet. So eating the same thing is probably because you have a list of food that you think that you should eat. And what I would encourage you to do is to try, I got told the other day that Alexa and Siri know the amount of potassium and phosphorus in foods. So what you may do is just think of some things. Are there things that you ate before that you just don't want to eat now because you're worried about them? If that's the case, then I would go through and maybe figure out how you can get a lower sodium version, maybe how you can eat a little less of that food. So if you're worried about eating bananas and potatoes and tomatoes, but you really like them, maybe you eat less of them. I don't really think you have to eliminate them. I know your diet, as you get to stage 5, that's a completely different story. But if you're talking about you just got diagnosed with stage 3, then I would encourage you to, so if you don't want to eat potatoes, you always have rice, you always have different kinds of pasta, you have all different kinds of vegetables. And if you say you like tomatoes, but you don't want to eat them, maybe you mix tomatoes in and then add a few other vegetables that are more like the greens and the yellows, like zucchini or peas or green beans, and mix them up. So hopefully those gave you this. Having the problem staying on the diet, I think sometimes that we get too restrictive when we start. So you start out gung-ho and you're like, hey, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to make this perfect. I'm going to fix this. And what is wrong with that thinking, or what is probably just going a little too far, is you can't go from eating the way you've been eating and then all of a sudden change and expect it to work. Honestly, there's a person in the future that does do that eats those foods, that really follows that diet. And the person that you are today may not be that person. So you need to think about, what are the steps that I'm going to go through to get to that person? You're not going to leapfrog over all those steps. Maybe the person today who wants to be the person in the future who follows their diet, who eats the right amount of protein, and who has a healthy body, maybe that person today eats cereal for breakfast and lots of sugary foods, eats candy all the time. Of course, it's Halloween, so we're all thinking about candy. But So the person today has to think, okay, what is one step that I can make towards that person? Because what I think is happening is you're being too restrictive. So you want to fix everything all at once. You're going to fix it a little bit at a time. Your brain has these well-worn paths that always go to, I'm stressed out, I need some candy. So maybe you think to yourself, the person that is in the future that doesn't do that has to catch me before I eat candy, or if I find myself with my hand in the candy jar, I'm going to only eat half. Now, you may not think that that's progress, but that's actually super big progress. This does apply to stage 5 because if you haven't done anything yet, any small amount of improvement is going to get you there. What I'm saying about the potassium and phosphorus is that typically at stage 5, you are going to need to limit those. So maybe the person today who wants to get to that better person is the person that writes down how much potassium and phosphorus they ate for the day and then tries to make that better the next day. So those are just some ideas, not perfect, but just start thinking about, where is my future self? Where do I want to be? And then what is it that I can do today to do a little bit better to get there? Because again, you didn't get there. You don't get there overnight. You don't get there by stop doing what you're doing. You get there by making small changes every day. And yes, you might be motivated to make a huge change. And if you can make that stick, awesome. If you can't, just start making those smaller changes. So the only thing that doesn't apply, the potassium and phosphorus typically at that point are restricted. Okay, so we talked a little bit about how to adjust recipes. You're welcome. Thank you for the question. We talked a little bit about how to adjust recipes and how to make some good changes. And then the third thing I want is to the changes to make in your home and your routine. And that is kind of what I already got into, which is thinking about your home. Do you have things that are set up to help you make better choices? So do you have pre-cut vegetables in your fridge that you can then easily throw into a pan? Do you have lower sodium or frozen vegetables that you can easily cook that are healthy for you? Do you have fresh fruits in your house that you can grab as a snack instead of a salty pretzel? Those sorts of things are choices that you're making, and when you're thinking about, where do I need to go? So where do I need to go? I need to do better with getting the snacks that I eat healthier. So maybe the thing that you need to do better is to pick what those snacks are going to be for the rest of the week. I love the idea of making a meal plan for the whole week, but that doesn't always work for everybody, and you kind of have to work into it. So just what some people said on the comments the other day was, I do it kind of day to day. And if all you can do is plan what you're going to eat for that day, that's still a step forward. Because instead of eating mindlessly and instead of thinking about like maybe what you should be doing in that moment, you're thinking about what you're using your survival brain in that moment is going to say we need chocolate. But if you've talked to and through this process with your kind of higher level brain, and that moment when you're like, I need chocolate, but yet I've planned a snack and I have it with me, you can negotiate in that moment a little better instead of going, oh, I don't have any choices because I didn't bring a snack. You're thinking, I have a choice because I have brought this item as a snack. Maybe I don't want carrots with ranch right now. Maybe I'm going to eat them and give myself 15 minutes and only have a small piece of candy. When you're thinking about your home, you're stocking it with the things that you need, but you're also taking out some of those things that are not going to be as healthy for you. And the other thing you need to do is talk to your family. If you go to family outings, or if you go to, if you have family over, or if you live with people, probably, you need to have a discussion with them about the changes that need to be made and how they can help you usually when you live with people, your best interests are part of their best interests. So a lot of times they're so wonderful and want to help, and they don't realize that always buying chips and having them in the house is not the most healthy thing for you. And so if there's a way that they can fix that, or there's a way that they can help that, then more power to it. Another thing I like is to do prep ahead of time, but also to do portion control. So I may have mentioned before that I have a teenage son who is eating me out of house and home at the moment. But one of the big rules we have in the house, he loves the goldfish crackers, you know, the little bitty things. So they come in these big cartons. They're like that big. And he'll just go grab the whole carton and take it to his room. So we have a couple rules, which sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But usually it's that you don't take things to your room to eat because you need to sit down at the table. We have a conversation if you want to snack later. But the other thing is also that you take things in portions. So you don't just take the whole bag of potato chips and stick your hand in it and eat it constantly. So one of the things you can make as your own rule is that you're going to portion control things. Even when you are, you know, taking snacks or whatever, if you're eating potato chips, you're going to look at the back of that bag. You're going to see that it's 5 chips. You're going to take 5 chips out, and that's what you're going to eat. For my son, if you want more, you're welcome to come back for more. In that moment, what I had to say today, I do want to share with you. I've posted it in the group, but I have my kidney diet starter kit. My kidney diet starter kit has like 7 days of meals and snacks to put in to start with. That's pretty healthy. But I also talk about cooking. I talk about, I have in there the power of them for kidney disease. That's available right now. It's $6 off. You just have to use the coupon code starter. It's instead of B9, which is price listed when you go to the gym, put that coupon in and you'll be in good shape, and you'll get it for $19.99. There's nothing that's going to be mailed to you at the members area, so it's not you can watch the videos online. So I just want to encourage, you're interested and you want to learn more about, like you just found out you have kidney disease and you need help, you sure that can help you. And I've got it on sale from now until Friday night, 1990. So thanks for listening today. I love some. Hopefully we can do, and have a great day. Thanks.